I'm Susannah Erwin, and I'm a local Bay Area author who writes sexy, fun, escapist romances for Harlequin Desire. Harlequin Desire publishes 6 romances a month that feature juicy plot twists, intriguing scandal, and delicious sensuality. My latest book, Cinderella Unmasked, was just published this month, and it starts at a masquerade ball where Nell Laston and Grayson Monk meet. But when the masks come off, Nell is shocked to find that she's involved with the son of the man who ruined her father. Grayson, for his part, has no idea there was bad blood between the families. So he decides to help Nell by inviting her to a very exclusive VIP wine tasting up in Napa where she can meet wealthy donors for her children's charity. This scene takes place at the winery, and it begins with Grayson talking to his friend Evan, who just might be the hero of my next book. I hope you enjoy this excerpt from Cinderella Unmasked, and I want to thank the San Mateo Library for inviting me to be part of Romance Month. Grayson tuned back in just in time to hear Evan's sigh. Next thing I know, boys' nights will be pizza for one and games of solitaire instead of Cuban cigars and hands of poker. Grayson side-eyed him. When have we held a boys' night? Or played poker? It's metaphorical. Evan reached for the nearest open wine bottle. Grayson took the bottle from Evan's grasp and moved it to the other side of the table, where it joined several empty ones. I'm beginning to think a vineyard might not have been your wisest choice of investment. Remember how Luke looked at Danica last year? I see the same thing in your eyes, my friend. I think you've seen the bottom of your glass too many times. Please tell me, you're staying here tonight and not driving back to the city. Evan laughed. Don't worry, I'm as sober as a judge presiding over a patent theft trial. He indicated the guests migrating toward the tables of freshly prepared food. Dinner's on. But the real question is, have you decided on what you're having for dessert? He wagged his eyebrows and clapped Grayson on the back. I've got to mingle. I'll talk to you later. Not if I can help it, Grayson muttered into his glass. What was that? Nell appeared at his side. She was so close he could reach out an arm, encircle her waist, and pull her against him. He reached out his hand and motioned at the open bottle, still about half full. I was saying I never leave good wine behind if I can help it. Want another glass? He was stalling. He knew. They should join the others eating dinner. But the sooner they ate, the sooner the end of the night would come, and the sooner he would have to say goodbye to her. She glanced at the line for the food, then back at the bottle, and held out her glass. Sure, I don't think I've tried this one. He poured her a small amount, then looked at the label. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon blend. According to the tasting notes, he picked up a sheet of paper dotted with ring-shaped stains and tried to read it in the dim light. You should detect notes of plum, cherry, and black currants. She took a sip, considered for a minute, and gave him a half smile, half grimace. Can I just make a confession? I only taste wine. He laughed. Me too. But we didn't go through the ritual wine tasting steps. Trust fancy people to make wine more complicated than it needs to be. You pour, you drink. What more needs to happen? She reached across him to take the bottle and top off her glass. Her scent wafted over him, a light jasmine note that was reminiscent of spring and fresh beginnings. He cleared his throat. Several things happened. For example, at a tasting you consider the wines. He dropped his gaze so he wouldn't be mesmerized by how the skin above the deep V of her neckline gleamed in contrast to the velvet of her dress. But when he looked down, he was greeted by the sight of knee-high boots, their supple black leather hugging beautifully shaped calves. The wine's legs. She raised her eyebrows. Wine has legs? Some varietals do, depending on age, and then there's He made the mistake of glancing up just as Nell drank deeply, her eyes closed in appreciation, her lips wet on the glass. Mouthfeel. She threw him a glance from under her lashes. My mouth feels like I just drank wine. He would give anything to discover for himself how her mouth felt, right that very second. To properly assess mouthfeel, you hold the wine in your mouth. Her right hand hovered in midair, the glass halfway to her lips. Hold it in my mouth, he nodded, to get the feel. She put her wine glass down and slowly turned so they stood face to face. Barely a hand's width separated them. And after I've held it in my mouth? He reached for the bottle of wine standing at her elbow. It was either drink more or grab her hand, break into the winery, find a secluded room, and show her exactly what should happen next. She reached for the bottle at the same time. Their fingers met, collided. Neither let go. You have a choice. Do I swallow? Her thumb moved where it met his, grazing over his skin, so slightly that he wondered if he were imagining it. That's a possibility, although he paused. No, her thumb was definitely brushing against his. Not recommended. Really? I would think differently. Otherwise, it's such a waste of wine. Not if there are hours of wine tasting to come. He leaned down, his mouth almost at her ear. If you drink too much, there's a risk of finishing early. Her lips curved upward in a slightly wicked smile. I don't want that. The one thing I do know about wine is a lingering finish is preferred. And you'll have to read the book to find out what happens next. Thank you so much for having me.